feedback. That's what it is.
Hello,
Hello,
hello, hello.
hello. So excited.
Yeah.
Yes.
I'm feeling starstruck. When you're beside, a
Is that why
celebrity.
your tongue is rolling?
I'm actually. I told her that I'll be at my best behavior today.
Which must be very difficult for you.
Very difficult. I'm trying to be a good boy. Since mom started into the house, I've had to change a little bit. So that the thing about first impression.
And you comb
So
your hair, which is really good.
You didn't come with
I don't understand.
You didn't come with Your hair is not cold.
Leave my hair alone.
Your
You
hair is not
guys.
cold.
Hmm.
Hi guys.
So you're not usually this quiet.
No. She troubles
Can't
me.
you see the way he's
She,
like
she
this?
troubles me a lot. But I'm a quiet person, except when she brings out the. What's wrong with you?
Sorry, I didn't say anything. I just said, it's your guilt that is disturbing you.
I will triple your fees if you don't support me on this matter.
Oh, yeah, I support you. I support you.
Okay.
Oh. Anyway.
Okay. So let's kick off. It's going to be a very interesting conversation tonight, and we are so blessed to have in our midst a special guest.
Yes.
She's our guest of honor.
Where's my?
Where's the drum roll? Who's doing the drum roll?
Well, that's up to you.
The one and only, the delectable, the amazing,
Yeah.
the well-spoken,
Oh dear.
the veteran of us all,
The legend,
the legend,
The legend of the legends.
Oh,
the
okay.
maestro of maestros, the Iggy Haga.
The newscaster of newscaster.
the Iggy Haga. All right,
Oh,
okay, no
gosh.
more jokes. Bimbo Lady right here in our Real Deep studio.
Oh
Yes.
yeah, I'm super excited to have her. I mean, I don't know what to say, guys.
I can see that.
I've had so much about seeing her on the screen, and
Hi, Sarah.
and today I'm privileged to be sitting just beside her and moderating this show. It's so nice having you. In the
And you
studio.
wanted to go and rest before.
Yeah, because I really need to rest.
Oh,
Anyway,
but is it
I've been
because
on
that
meds
you were
all week.
afraid?
No,
Are you sure?
Anyway.
non-mercenaries are never afraid of.
Hey, shout
Anyway, it's nice to be here.
she's
Nice to have
back.
you.
She's been she's been logged in every single week to our show. Every
Yeah.
time we're on, she's logged on. So it's just, it's about time. It's about time she joined us in the studio today. So it's really amazing.
I must commend you, ma'am, because every time we run the show and I see you online, I'm just blown away. I know that you could be very, very busy, but that you make out time to actually comment and listen and support my girls. It's quite commendable, and I want to thank you very much for all you do for us.
Well, you're welcome. You're welcome. If I don't support them, who else will I support?
That's it right there. All right, cool stuff. So let's go into okay, so welcome to Real Deep Conversations. We always forget this part, but welcome to Real Deep Conversations. This is where we table matters of the heart. This is where we have uncomfortable conversations. This is where we have comfortable conversations. This is where we dive deep into, the heart of the matter, and to just really, I guess, define, redefine, reevaluate all the things that we know, the things that we've been taught, so that we can create the best versions of ourselves. So it's really amazing for us to be doing this. And today we're going to continue with our series on heart-to-heart conversations before the wedding bells. This episode is talking about redefining concepts of love and marriage.
It's going to be deep. It's going to be a deep one, a deep dive, because those two concepts are grossly misunderstood all over, and everyone seems to have a version of what love is and what marriage is. And I mean, in my work with a whole lot of clients, especially the women, when they ask me, I mean, when I ask them, how do you know a guy who really loves you? What I hear scares me. So you hear things like, he loves me, he's going to be there for me, he's going to take me out, he's going to, and I'm like, any fool that wants to sleep with you can do any of those things. So for you to be looking for what you don't even know, it's scary for me. It means that when you're given a version of it that is not it, you're going to grab it. And I think that's the foundation of heartbreak for many. So I'm really excited, and the fact that we have mommy in the studio, I mean, she's going to be able to look. I mean, she's lived in different generations, so she's going to be able to bring it home for us and help us out tonight.
With how many years of marriage under your belt again?
Well, 40
Almost
actually.
40 years.
Wow.
40 years.
Yeah. So
40. You weren't born.
whatever. But thanks for announcing to the world that I am young.
I was 3.
Thank you for announcing that I am still young. Holla.
Yeah,
There's nothing wrong with being young. There's nothing wrong with being young. We're all trying to be young now.
Yes,
Oh,
man.
yes.
He's trying to shame me that I was not born at that time, and I'm telling him
you're
that it's
projecting.
okay.
I wasn't trying to shame you.
Whatever.
I was only
Don't
trying
worry.
to and remind you
Your age shaming.
that you have some
Seniors.
seniors in the studio.
All their pictures are broken in my house. Ask her. Anyway, so yes, I mean that's going to be the conversation today. And who wants to kick it off? Okay, actually, I know who should kick it off. Diola, you started talking about, you wanted to talk about something last week. It was something that was really pressing on your heart, which was going to take us away from our matter.
I hope the matter is still within this matter.
It is actually within
Oh,
this
okay,
matter
because
it is.
She did
it
everything to we had to put something on her.
Yes, we had to hold
They
her.
threatened me not to say it last week.
Yeah, because we have to stay within the the
Yeah,
topic. Yeah.
So
So over to you.
So let's keep
so
your preamble and then we'll start.
hi everyone. My name is Adiola. I'm not in the studio today, but I'm ably represented by my two sons and my mother. And so last week, something that was really on my heart was this topic of when they say, what kind of man or woman are you looking for? You hear people say God-fearing. And, and that kind of really touched me because as it is, everybody is talking about God-fearing. And when you really trickle it down, it's the fear of God. And hardly anybody is teaching deeply about the love of God, so which is God-loving, right? Because when you come from a place of fear, you're doing it just because you have to, not because you want to, and it's not because it's from a deep place. And that fear is moving us to do all kinds of things, without us being able to tell our truth. So if you bring it into the marriage sector and into the place where, okay, I'm about to get married, the first thing women or men say they want is a God-fearing or a God-fearing man. Now, what does that really mean? What does God-fearing mean? It means that I should be afraid of God and then be able to hide all the things that I need to hide so that either God or you will not see me. And then I can pretend to be something that I'm not just because I don't want to end up in a place where I shouldn't end up in. And for me, that just really, it took me in a place where I'm like, why are we not looking for God-loving people? Because if I do things out of love, if I love God, then I can love you. If I'm afraid of God, then I'll be afraid of you. And because I'm afraid of you, I'm only going to do the things that you want me to do. But once you are not there, I'm able to be me. And that, I think that has also messed up a lot of relationships, or the basis of relationships, to say, this is what I'm looking for, without actually thinking deeper into it. And that's what I wanted to say last week.
Okay, thank you very much, Diola. I think that when people, professionally now, from my therapy room, when people say, God, I want a God-fearing man, What they are not saying, or what they are actually saying that is not audible, is I want him to fear God enough not to cheat on me. So every other thing,
It's the other thing is
so it's about this guy should not cheat on me. So fear God enough not to cheat on me. That's usually what this God fearing is all about. But I agree with you, and you can't totally blame people, because the concept of God that was introduced to us was not a God of love. It was a God of unkillable killer, fire and brimstone. And because I think, and thank God mommy is here, we're coming from a background of idolatry where our gods in Africa were not loving. You had one that fire was coming out of his mouth, Shango. You had Ogun, you had Eshu, you had Oya, you had Amadioha. So every time you mention those names, you couldn't have gone to Og Shango, for example, or Ogun, or whatever. So when God was brought into us, we could only understand the fear of God, and coupled with the fact that the government we have in power were basically military government, as it were. So you find a situation where we are driven by fear and not by love. So and go to a typical church, raise a prayer point, and say, "All my enemies die." You will see the way we begin to gyrate. If you open your eyes to observe our body language, you would almost conclude. If you are used to the traditional worship, you almost conclude that we were in a shrine or something. The way we gyrate, oh yeah, die. But if you raise another prayer point, that may God help me to forgive my enemies and help me to love them, people will hardly pray that prayer, because we're not used to love. And also, if you bring it down to our fathers, like I had said several times on this show, I never saw my dad hug my mom except once a year, and it had to happen whenever we cross over to the new year. Usually a 6-second transaction. The next time you will see will be the next year. Right. So let's say I stayed with my dad I lived at home for 21 years. I only saw my father hug my mother, 6-second hug, 21 times in 21 years. Do you understand? So there is no way love will resonate easily with me, but if you say fear, I saw the fiery part of him. If my father was coming back from work, you only needed to hear the blaring of his horn. He had a special, I think almost all the fathers in that generation, they seem to, I don't know, once you had it, you have to pretend as if you're serious. You have to sit down and face your books and things like that, So again, unconsciously, we were taught hypocrisy. So you couldn't have been yourself around him, because his emotions define the mood in the house. His appetite defined what we ate. If I had to go and talk to him, I had to do sign of the cross and commit his heart into God's hand. So when you have situations like that, you can't just wake up one day and say, God loving. Where is God loving going to come from? It's not in us. And like I always say, if you squeeze me and Mukaila shows up, then there is Mukaila, not praise. All right. So if you squeeze someone and you to show up, when God loving is not being deposited, then he's asking for too much. That's asking for too much.
Mommy,
what do you?
Yes.
Deep, man.
Yes, but you see, there's the issue too that people are actually afraid of love. So when you think about it, people are afraid to trust, and trust is part of love. So I have a feeling that it is easier to be afraid than it is to trust. It's easier to be afraid than it is to love. There's a whole lot of you that goes into love. You can distance yourself. You can be neutral, if you like, with fear, but you can't do that with love. There's a lot of
vulnerability.
Apart from vulnerability, you
emotion.
as a person, your emotion, everything about you is involved with love. But you can you can be afraid and put a wall between whatever it is that you're afraid of and yourself. You can't do that with love.
Wow, that's a dimension I've never
Thought of.
considered. Yeah, because I mean, and it's I think I quite I kind of agree with her. So because I mean, with fear, you can at least protect yourself.
Yes.
With
Yeah.
love, there is nothing to protect. There is no wall. You know, so you could actually get killed faster with love than with fear.
Absolutely.
Because at least with fear, you're watching your back. If I drop my, even though it's tougher to live that way, it's stressful. But I mean, experience over time has shown, and you don't. I'm not sure we even have enough reference points of people who truly loved and it ended well. I think we what we have in our memory are people who gave their all and still they got their fingers burnt.
And regretted it.
Yeah. So I mean, fear now becomes our friend that protects us from being from going the other way.
But anything that is going to be worth doing actually is a risk. There's hardly anything that is guaranteed. It's a risk. And you just have to be prepared to take that risk.
But how do you take that risk, mommy, when you are not even? I mean, take for instance, we're talking about marriage
Yes.
and love. I mean, this guy you just met 2 years, and you have had four other relationships. It's your boyfriend. Oh, I love you. I will help you. I'll be there for you. Then you realize that the guy is dating someone else. So all through your memories, all through your entire memory, you've had history of being cheated on, being deceived, and then here comes this guy. He's saying, I'm different. It's gonna be. I'm not sure you want to make that when you don't have any experience of, and I think that's why there's a lot of generalization right now where ladies and men are scum, men are this, men are that.
Yeah.
Because
they've had multiple experiences.
Yes.
It's not just
That-
it happened once.
that
and
has
then-
reinforced.
Yes.
And they have friends, they have mothers, they have
Yeah.
all kinds of.
Yeah.
So I mean, so how do you find that person that you now say, okay, I'm gonna let go fully, and then get into you?
Well,
Still a risk.
it is a risk.
Wow.
It is a risk. I mean, I took a risk. I really did because I'm not sure that. Well, I knew my husband. Then he wasn't my husband. I think I knew him pretty well, but I really didn't know much about his family.
Hmm.
And anyway, perhaps I was coming from a different perspective because I had spent many years out of the country, and I was used to this idea of, oh, I have met this person, let me take him to meet my parents, and oh, this is the person that I think I want to settle down with. That was the kind of perspective that I had. I didn't know anything at that point about the family has to be involved. You need to know about this background. You need to know this. It was totally alien to me. In fact, the very first traditional engagement or wedding ceremony that I ever attended in my life was mine.
Wow.
I had no idea what happened. The very first one I attended was my own. And it was fascinating. It was completely different from what I had imagined because I'd never seen one. I'd never attended one.
Why?
I wasn't here.
Oh.
I wasn't here. I came back within, I think within 2 years of my returning to Nigeria, I was thinking about getting married. And during the time that I was working and the point when I decided that I was going to get married, I didn't attend any wedding ceremony, not to talk of a traditional wedding ceremony.
Wow.
Yeah. I was working in a place where, frankly, our working hours were crazy. I was working at, well, then it wasn't called NTA, but I was at a television station, and we didn't close until 10 o'clock. And so at what point was I going to attend any wedding? We didn't know what was Saturday. We didn't know what was Sunday. I mean, it's not that we didn't sometimes have weekends off, but basically our working hours were crazy. So there was no time to, and I didn't know people either. The people that I knew, the people that were my friends, were those people that I worked with. So none of them at that point were either getting married or inviting me to weddings. So I had never been to a Nigerian wedding.
Wow.
I had never been to a traditional engagement or wedding ceremony.
So you were getting married and you were also observing at the same time.
Absolutely. That's why I said
It's like you're a guest at your own
at
event.
I took a risk. So, but as far as I was concerned, I felt I knew him well enough. I felt we understood each other well enough, and that for me at that time it was enough.
You know what she's mom is talking about. I mean, aligns with the what I call the purest definition of love, which is love is a decision that is built on a commitment to add value to someone else for the rest of expecting a thank you.
Please say that again.
Love is a decision that is built on a commitment to add value to someone else for the rest of your life without expecting a thank you.
Absolutely.
That's a pretty interesting definition.
And that's a risk.
That's unconditional love.
Yes.
Yeah, that's unconditional.
Without
Yeah.
expecting thank you.
Thank you.
Maybe if we
That's our first redefinition there, right?
yeah,
right
maybe,
there.
maybe,
right there.
maybe if
First
we stick to that definition, then it will help more people. Because
Yeah.
what we have now is yin and yang,
Mhm.
you know, to say
It's give and
and take.
Yeah.
And true love is not actually give and take.
It's
Right.
give and
Give
give.
Give and give.
Sorry, can I quickly say something? You know, I used to say that when we're now, I mean, my generation, I guess, or the generation of the feminists and those people that have come out to say we don't want men. It's from the fact that we saw our mothers do certain things and we promised ourselves it will not happen to us. And so we're now at war. However, one day I sat down and I really thought it through and I said to myself, could it be that what our mothers did was called unconditional love? Could that have been unconditional love? The fact that the men did whatever they did, but it didn't stop them from loving them and loving the children. Isn't that what unconditional love is? And isn't that what we're swapping with conditional love? If you love me, I love you. If you treat me well, I treat you well. If you don't treat me well, I don't treat you well. Screw it. So I started to now see the positive. I started to see my mother and that whole gang as maybe there was something that they were doing that was actually right, because yes, even if they may have been in pain and all those things, but their marriages lasted, and we that were saying that we're the future, where after 2 months we're saying we're incompatible, or we don't see eye to eye, or the things that I want is not what he wants. So I'm just wondering whether that really was unconditional love, and if there's something to learn from there.
I before Momsy responds, I think it could be and it may not be, and I'll tell you where I'm coming from. There's a concept called meekness, right? Meekness is strength under control, which means what I can do in my power, I refuse to do it in my wisdom, right? But the prerequisite for meekness is power. You must have power. Do you
And choose
understand?
not to use
And
it.
choose not to use it.
Right.
That
It's
I
like
can hurt you, I can walk out on you, but I refuse to, in my wisdom, not to do it. Now, it was the almost out in their generation.
their
So
generation.
that power awareness was not totally there.
Yeah.
So I say to people that when you say you are meek without power, you're actually weak. Do you understand? So, but our generation where we now have power, we now lack meekness.
Or the wisdom.
The wisdom, yeah. So we don't, now we can do it. So let me walk out. So it has to be a kind of hybrid of a merger of their own generation. And because
And
they had
our
a long enduring, because a whole lot of them, never forget that in their generation, there were no therapies, there was nobody to talk to. In fact, they saw our fathers misbehave big time, and they still, I mean, maybe for lack of option for some of them, but some of them were genuinely in love. I mean, I remember my dad and my mom. There was a day I just felt that my dad was always troubling my mom all the time. So there was this day they got into a particular argument. I mean, they will not be themselves. So, I mean, these two people, you see them argue. You almost think that something is going to. Then you had a knock on our door. Then they will collaborate to welcome the guests, pretend as if nothing, was going on, and they will entertain the guests. They will contribute. Then when the guests left, they continue their stuff. So I felt that my dad was always rubbing it in on my mom. So I waited him that day and I stood against him. Then I walked out on him, went to my room. Then my mom knocked on my door and she said to me, "Go and apologize to your dad." As in, I looked at this woman, I should go and apologize to my dad.
After standing up
for you, said, "No, he's my husband, you are my son." That the relationship, husband and wife relationship, is different. From father and son
relationship.
My dear, I learned the biggest lesson from that day. They like, so I think they are in their capacity to handle stuff. I think parenting has changed. We are no longer having formidable women, formidable men who can endure. Yes, there's power, and that's the thing. We always take things to another extreme. I think it's a merger of the two to say, we're not even picking anything from them. We say, I will not go through what my mother went through. But the model stability, the model what it meant for a family to stay together. When I have to mediate between people who are co-parenting, I see the pain of the child having to live with this person, then live with this person, and then the person is now married. There's another woman. But if it's just the two of you, there are lots of things you can resolve on your own and together. So I think it's got to be a merger of the two, and I think we have a whole lot to learn, which brings me to the fact that and I think she's answered it, because in their generation they will usually go and check the family pattern. So I was quite surprised when she said she didn't know the family, which is another thing we have discarded. Boy meets girl. But those checks, because patterns are predictors of the future. Those checks played a whole. They knew the families that were wayward. They knew the families who will not stay long in their whatever, and they knew how to avoid those kind of families. They were checking for patterns. Maybe the way they were going about it was not totally, they were using some juju and whatever. But they checked.
Let me just correct something there.
Yes.
I'm not saying that my parents did not do a background check.
Okay.
I'm saying that I personally did not know the members of my husband's family.
Okay.
I met I think 3 of his brothers. I met 3 of his brothers. I met his mother, I think, once before we got married.
Sure.
I think I met his father too once before we got married. But I know that my that made inquiries, and I know that a few people who were sort of mutual friends between my father-in-law and my father. I know 1 or 2 of them came to visit my dad and my mother. But other than that, I didn't know too much about them. But yes, I think I was listening when Diola was talking about my generation, and what I was thinking about actually was my mother's generation. Because just as she was probably saying to herself, "Oh, there are certain things that I don't think I am going to accept," I am sure that I also said to myself, there are certain things that I will not accept. Watching my own, when you spoke about meekness, I wanted to ask you, is being meek, is it the same thing as being submissive?
Another concept we're going to define.
Yes, being submissive. No, I don't think it's the same. I don't
Okay.
think it's the same.
All right. So let's say that my mother was submissive to a point. I can recall that she was submissive to a point, and that point actually was um, when her mother was alive.
Mm.
Okay, I remember her saying specifically that there was a day she mentioned to my father that the person I have been respecting, she's not here again. Oh.
Hmm.
She's not here again. Oh. So don't be surprised about whatever it is I'm going to say to you.
Wow.
Yes, I remember my mother saying saying that to me. I do not think that I was unable to say anything to my husband based on whatever my mother might have felt or not felt, said or not said. I recall that I learned at a certain point that there are certain things that I would say to him at particular times.
Mm.
So I suppose over the years, I gained that wisdom because one of the things that I think your generation has a problem with is that you just talk.
Hmm.
And that's fine. I have no people speaking their minds, but you don't say what you need to say at the right time,
Hmm.
which causes a lot of damage.
Hmm.
A lot of damage because once you say, even if it's the right thing,
At the wrong
if
time.
you say it at the wrong time, then you're causing a different problem altogether, and it becomes something very long-winded, and you're unable to unravel it sometimes. But I did learn that you have to say certain things and choose the time, the right time, and that right time can only be discovered if you have taken the trouble to study the person
Mm.
that you're living with. Because if he's a reasonable person, when you say something at the right time, he will be ready to listen.
Hmm.
So that brings me to some of the things that something I wanted to wanted us to talk about, which is we're talking about conversations, heart-to-heart conversations before wedding bells,
Mm.
right? So it means that whether it is within yourself or between you and the person that you want to settle down with,
Mm.
there must be conversations you must have.
Yeah.
This understanding the person is one of it.
Yes.
And now understanding that person is also both of you bringing yourselves to a table and shaking that table very well
Mm.
and saying, what do we expect from one another? Because something I think we should also talk about is what is marriage? Eh? What is husband? What is wife? Or who is a husband? Who is a wife? But then what do we even expect from one another? Because that will also help to establish that understanding and also help to manage your expectations. And when things crop up or when things happen, you can both remind yourselves that, Awe, come on, we talked about this.
Mm.
This is what we agreed. This is how we agreed we were going to face this or focus on that or whatever it is. So how do we move forward from that? Because we have to have, it's not after the wedding that you now start discussing how you're going to deal with XYZ. And of course, I know things change, people go through different phases, and of course, as things happen, you also have to adjust.
Mm.
So I'm not even talking about a rigid situation here, but you must start from a place where there is a base, there is you have a mutual level of understanding and
Foundation.
respect, a foundation on which to build your marriage on. So when do you start talking about what do you expect from one another? Because I think that's key.
Mm.
That's key. And that also goes to something that Jola, you've always said, which is human beings or like beings should attract like beings.
Fine.
Yeah. kind should attract kind.
Well, I'm not sure if you're talking to the right person. You are and you aren't. First of all, one conversation that I had with my husband before we got married was that he told me on a particular day that, look, oh, I can't marry you. He told me categorically that we cannot get married. And I remember saying to him, but did I ever tell you that I wanted to marry you? And he said, well, we cannot marry because you are not the kind of person that my mother will accept. She cannot live with you. And I'm sure you can't live with her. So I said, okay, fine. And we went our separate ways. Until one day he showed up at my front door. But that's another story.
Story for another day.
Very interesting story.
The thing is that you have to be honest enough with each other to really spell it out. And that's why I said right at the beginning that it is hard it is hard to love because
you give
everything. You
Mhm.
give everything, and in fact you are stripped to the bone. So here you are, you're thinking about getting married. If only you would be able to sit down and have this difficult because it's not an easy conversation. Have this conversation and really spell it out to each other. This is what I expect. Because if you don't do that, it is so easy after the wedding to be pulled in different directions by different people. In-laws here, friends there, workers there, colleagues. Everybody has their own opinion about your marriage. But if you can understand exactly what it is you have gone into, exactly what it is that you've let yourself in for, and you understand the person that you are living with, and he also understands you, then honestly, no matter what happens around, let the storm blow, let the winds blow, that house will remain on a solid foundation. But only if from the word go, you agree, okay, you know what? We're having 2 children, no more. You know what? We're going to live in such and such a house or such and such a place. If I can't afford it, you're working, you know what? I'll add a little bit so that we can live in the kind of house that we think we would be comfortable in. It's not anybody's business if both of us are contributing to the rent. Nobody needs to know. People only get to hear if you tell them.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Okay, so there are basic decisions, basic agreements that you have to come up with and stick to them. Granted, things do change and maybe a few adjustments are made, but if you can have that basic communication before you get married and keep those lines of communication open afterwards, because that again is where other problems develop.
Yeah.
5 years down the line, you might be a different person.
Yeah.
You're waking up next to somebody who is entirely different, who perhaps has decided that, you know what, I think I'd actually like to have 4 children, not 2. But it's still a conversation. It's still a conversation.
Yeah.
So
I was going to add to that quickly before you jump in, that another conversation that we do not have is that question around monogamy. We assume as Christians, oh, he should not cheat. She should not cheat. He shouldn't have an affair or she shouldn't have an affair. but we don't actually sit down and talk about monogamy and ask what monogamy means to us. And if it's something that we can actually practice, you know. And also, I mean, cheating means all kinds of things to different people. Some people it's just a smile, she's cheating. Some people it's a kiss, she's cheating. Some people it's down to sex. And so it means different things. So we need to be able to then have that conversation to say, to me, I will feel cheated on or upon if you do X, Y, Z. And the other person will say the same thing. It's not a conversation we ever have. It's only a conversation you have after, when you now start to see certain things that you never spoke about in the beginning. And so I think that's one huge conversation that needs to be had. Another one I think is talking about love. What does love mean to you? What does love mean to you? Where if because my love might be standing in my face, slapping me, but because I don't know what that love is, I don't see it. So there has to be a redefinition between both of us of what love is. And of course, sometimes it's around our love language. But those conversations, I think, are really important and need to be had before you get married.
Thank you very much, Adiola. We've tried to put this in a format now in our profession to help people. So what we do is we moderate such conversations and we get them to document everything they agree on. So what we have done is, so there's a body of knowledge called family system engineering. And so we have this psychometry that we run. We call it Oyela. Now, one of the tests, one of the assessments is called culture compatibility test, which covers the 4 areas that people hardly talk about. So question number 1, for example, is you have to choose whether you agree or you disagree. Okay. A man is superior to a woman.
To a woman.
Do you agree or you don't agree? Number 2, a husband is superior to his wife. Do you agree or do you disagree? Number 3, it is the duty of the woman to cook. Do you agree or do you disagree? Number 4, it's the duty of the man to be the breadwinner and bring in the money, right? Do you agree or do you disagree? Now, it's interesting that when you put this before people won't get married, you begin to see all sorts. Now, and these are areas that if we had not moderated it, it would have wrecked their marriages.
Yeah.
So when you get to the point where a man is superior to men, in fact, I have this, I have the data and the pie chart. Men will say yes, they agree. Women will say they disagree.
Women will say yes.
But if we have not, some women will even say yes, but some women will disagree. Now, if we had not moderated that, they would have just gone on assumption, thinking, okay, we are friends, we are lovers,
we're on the same level.
Meanwhile, the guy is thinking, I'm superior to you. So that's why when people say, respect a man, respect means don't argue with him. It's to say that I'm superior to you.
Yeah.
Now, husband superior to his wife is the duty of the woman to cook. We have women who say, no, I disagree. Some men would say, I agree. Some men would say, we disagree. Now, the further thing, what we now do, when there's a disparity, we do beliefs alignment, which is where you will see relation. So take, for instance, a man is superior to a woman. We ask the men, so where did you get this belief from? They will say, Bible. Where in the Bible? And God said, let us make man in our image. So he said, man was the first person to be created. So I said, can you continue reading? Say, and let them have dominion. So I said, if it was talking about a male, because a man, people assume that a man is male. Now, if it was talking about a male, it would have been let him have dominion. So for the Bible to have said, let them, meant that man there couldn't have been singular. It must be plural.
Yeah.
So we go and check. And we realize that the word man there is not male. The word man there is humanity or mankind created in 2 genders, male and female. You know what? It becomes an aha moment for them. And they're like, but they didn't teach us this. Now you are saying it yourself. Right?
Pierre, you see the creation itself, and they say, but I even had this conversation, I think yesterday or day before yesterday with somebody and said, no, but then why did God create man first and then remove woman from man? That then means that man is more, it was the first creation of God.
No, don't understand. I mean, my dad was an Anglican priest, so a lot of Pentecostals don't understand Bible,
Oh my God.
and I'm sorry to say that. My dad is an Anglican priest, so I always tell people that I learned Bible first in Hebrew and Greek. So it's by choice that I'm not pastoring the church. Now, they need to understand that the creation of man is different from the invention or introduction of marriage.
Hmm.
Mm.
Do you understand? So it was the search for marriage that was happening in Genesis 2, had nothing to do with creation. And they also need to understand that, which is where you now begin to, if you follow it the way they preach it, which is where you now realize that it doesn't make sense, because you now begin to ask, if Adam and Eve were created according to them, right? And Adam and Eve gave birth to Cain and Abel. Then Cain kills Abel. Then Cain still married someone. Where did he get the wife from? Do you understand? So they can't answer that question.
Yeah.
Right. So when you talk about the creation of man and woman, it's first of all, right? So the construction of the body is another ballgame entirely. Now they are not ready for that conversation. But what people need to understand is, so I always tell people when we do cultural compatibility, the moment I find, so if you say a man is superior to a woman, and the man says I agree, and the woman say I agree, it's not broken, don't fix it, leave them alone. Because there are women like that, they exist.
Yes.
Who believe that my husband is my Lord, I must worship him. They exist.
Yeah.
There's nothing wrong with them. But where you now disagree, that's unequal yoke, because you are now yoked with an unbeliever, wherein an unbeliever is someone who doesn't believe what you believe. Do you understand? But when the concept of unbeliever is taught, we think Muslim Christians. Meanwhile, I have found Christians and Muslims who believe the same thing.
Yeah.
Do you understand?
Yeah.
So people need to have that conversation and document. In fact, when we have another document called User's Manual. One of the things in User's Manual is your deal breaker. We discuss it. What's your deal breaker? Some people say, oh, the day you cheat, that marriage is over. Say, can we document it? So another person say, well, cheating is not the day you beat me, that's a deal breaker for me. I'm not going to, because deal breaker is what you will not forgive, no matter what happens. So we put it on the table and we document it. We agree on how is money going to be shared, how is whatever. Are you going to have joint account? Who is going to be? Are you going to follow the bread? In fact, we talk about the family governance, which goes back to our own definition of marriage.
Yeah.
We say that marriage is the coming together of a man and a woman from two different countries, from two different nations, to create a new nation that will promote the best interest of all, and whose culture will give our world rest. Now, so if we unpack that a little bit, it first says that the two of them are from two different nations, which is their family they came out from. So the family has taught them different things. They have different patterns, different worldview about everything. But now, can you now come and say and agree on the new nation you want to build? Which is where your family vision now comes in to say, what kind of family? Okay, can you write out what kind of family are you expecting? Similarities and match it together, wherein you now begin to create the activities that would ensure that
you get the
new
vision
is created. So what we also do for them is to now create, because there are job description, role description, right? Because husband and wife are actually roles, and those roles are optional. You don't have to take it. I think people don't understand the role demand is where. So when I ask ladies, for example, I say my husband is a fool. I say no. For him to have been a fool, you must be a fool. Because rule of thumb for me, never get married to a man whose leadership you can't submit to. Rule of thumb. Because you're actually recruiting the head of state. And if the head is bad, you can't say the nation is going to be good. Wherein the head also now needs to understand what headship is all about. That the head is not the richest, is not the smartest. The head is simply a steward, saddled with the responsibility to create an ideal environment where the potential of everyone must find expression. So a good head will actually release the potential of his wife, because he understands that his job description is found in that word bridegroom, which means the groomer of the bride. So when you want to choose, the first question as a lady you begin to ask is this guy a groomer? Can he groom himself? Let alone groom me.
Yeah.
So the questions you're going to be asking will be questions like, so if I got a job to be a pilot, to pilot Air Force One, what's going on? I say, who will be cooking for us? You know that is not your kind.
That's your kind.
Move on up.
They exist in FMG. They exist somewhere, right? Who wants to stay at home? They want to be cooking 3 times a day. They exist.
And be washing for you.
What I see here is our men wants to marry a Kim Kardashian with behavior of a Kemji.
Yes.
They both have Kim in it, guys. They both have Kim. One is in Kim, one is Kim.
It's
They
not
both have
right.
Kim in it.
Which is very crazy because for me, when I get to I mean, because I see it play out all the time. You know, before marriage, both of them are doing things together, then all of it. And it's almost as if women just retreat to the kitchen. You know, but for me, it was different because my mom put me in the kitchen. Right? I had 4 sisters ahead of me, but she made sure I cook for all of them. So I used to be like, this one wants to kill me. You know, everybody will eat and they'll pie their plate. You have to wash, you have to pound yam, you have to cook soup, you have to bake cake, and all those things. So, and she always said to me that, you know, I don't want you to go and recruit a cook, right? I want you to be the cook. When you can cook, you have no expectation of a woman coming to cook for you.
Mm.
And so, I mean, when I look back right now, I praise my mom because I didn't come. So I now married a banker who will sometimes return home at 10 o'clock, sometimes 1 a.m. You know, so would I be waiting and say, okay, come and cook for me and things like that? So I think this uncomfortable conversation is what people now need to begin to have and document that this is how we're going to spend money. This is the person who is a better money manager among the two of us. This person that will handle the money. You know, this is our money. We don't talk about my money is your money, or your money is your money. No. Everything we make is
our money.
Is our money. Is our money. That's the way we do it. You know, so it goes in the direction of
money.
The economy. So if people see it from that standpoint, where because I tell people, husband is simply the head of state. President Buhari is not the smartest. He's not the richest. You know, so but this concept culture now says if you don't have mom, you know, it's one of the most useless prayers I think they pray during wedding ceremony. That what God you will use to be husband, God will not deprive you of it. They are talking about money.
Money.
And I always ask, if you get married to Bill Gates' daughter, and his father has willed his entire wealth to her, what level
of money do you want to have?
To now out-end her? You're just going to die. You better enjoy the favor God has lent you.
Just enjoy the favor of God and say things like that.
Yeah, so, and it's always a leadership problem because no matter how much money your wife has got, she's always looking forward to that leader who is secure in his role, who can say, that's my babe, go do it, do you, be you, I'm rooting for you, you know, but they can't seem to stand that. They are looking for, oh yeah, sit at home, bring my food, and it's not helping anyone. So people's destiny are tied down because of what to eat, you know, their belly. And that's why I think it's even poverty driven. Those kind of conversation, you are the one that will be cooking, it's poverty driven. And how you know is this: I've asked almost everyone of counsel, if at the point of getting married, your wife is worth $1 billion, you are worth $1 billion, what are you going to be talking? Are you going to be talking about who is going to cook? And all of them
will have chef now.
All of them will say to me that you hire the best chef in the world. So it must now be poverty driven. It's because of poverty that we now saddle someone who has a brain with the responsibility of cooking every day when she can actually.
Is it only poverty though, PF? Is it not also ego?
Oh, sorry, go ahead. But go ahead. Say what
okay, yes, I just wanted to say that it takes a man to be a man. Honestly, it really does. I have a friend who he's a journalist. Actually, he is married to a woman who comes from a very wealthy family, and he made it clear from the word go. This is what he told me. He told his wife that, look, this is the place that we're going to live, and I want us to live in a place that is close to the school, so that you know the kind of hours that I work, you know the kind of hours that you work also, and I want to be able to just easily get to school, pick up the children, because he had elected to be in charge of school runs. And he told me that some days when his children were young, that he would be seen walking along the road, holding one child with one hand, and ensuring that he was patting his back because on his back was his child too,
Hmm.
that he used a wrapper
Mhm.
and packed his child on his back. And he would happily walk down to the school, drop the one that, was old enough to go to school, and go back home with the one that he still had to look after.
Hmm.
And I said to myself that day, I said, it takes a man who is 100% secure
In his manhood.
secure of his manhood, secure of his maleness, to say, look, whatever it is anybody says, whatever it is anybody does,
I don't care.
I don't give a damn.
Hmm.
I am going to do what I think is
I need
right
to do.
for my family, what I need to do. And anybody can say whatever they like.
I just want to read out a couple of comments before I say what I wanted to say. Four Fingers, hi TJ, that's TJ.
Okay. Hello,
This relationship, rather than the positive, we only focus on the negative instead of asking why in order to get a true, well-rounded perspective. And Leslie says meekness and submissiveness are synonymous, synonyms, whatever.
Okay.
The majority don't ask the right questions, so the conversations are always skewed. So on a light note, right, I just wanted to ask, why is it? Because I have a story to share, and it's something that I hear, I've heard a lot of people say as well. That's you said something before that made me remember the story, which was, when before we married, we were doing things together. We enter kitchen together. We did stuff together. The moment the ring entered finger, we entered house, it became husband and wife. The roles just automatically set in and shifted. And I'm asking, why does that happen? Why does that shift from boyfriend or lover to husband and wife? Why does that shift also cause that, sort of demarcation of this is now your role and this is not my business anymore? Why does that happen? I remember a former pastor of mine back in the UK. She was telling us a story one time. The pastor's wife was telling us one time of how, before, he got married, the guy would go into the kitchen, he would cook, he would do his laundry himself and all of that. The moment they got married, it was as if, in fact, the day he went to do laundry, she didn't know she didn't know that he could do laundry. She didn't know that he could use the washing machine. And it's not as if you're going to watch the washing machine, because she had never, it didn't even occur to her that this man can use the washing machine, because he had never done it. And meanwhile, he lived as a bachelor. He washed his clothes himself. So why does that happen? Why does that shift? Why does that shift happen? What causes
It
it?
looks to me like it's culture.
Yeah, it's a pattern. It's a recurring
Yeah,
pattern.
it's a recurring pattern. You saw your mom spend a life in the kitchen, and she put you in the kitchen. Actually, the boy child could go play soccer. Put you in the kitchen as a female. And they even said it to you that we don't want you to go and disgrace us when you get married. You're going to get married someday. But that they never said that to the male child. It's a build up, and by the time you get married, it's almost as if. And I always say it humorously that if the woman is meant for kitchen, then every household to a man who is not married should not have a kitchen, so that when you now get a woman, they can now attack the kitchen back. Because human beings eat. Cooking is a means to eating. Then human beings should cook. But
Man or woman?
it's what it is. I think our generation will change that.
I think we are definitely changing it.
Especially my sons, because my son was not even aware. He didn't know that in some houses women are the ones who cook. Until the first time he saw it was social studies textbook, primary 3, that said that his job is to go to work and make money. Mommy's job is to stay in the kitchen and cook for the family. And it was a heated.
In this
in a
day and age.
textbook,
No, but
yeah.
in this day and age,
Yeah.
we're still having textbooks like that.
I mean, it became a heated
But guys,
debate.
but people are still struggling with this thing. I have a very enlightened friend who said to me that his wife will not only cook for him, she will serve him and watch him eat and pack his plate and go and wash it. That his mother did it for his father, so they must do it for him too. That
Well,
is
if
an
his,
enlightening today's man.
if his wife is okay with it, it's not a problem.
She married her kind.
As long as he's not complaining. Okay, our time is again. I think we have to have mommy back, because we don't get to scratch. 1 hour just flies like that.
1 hour flies real quick. Okay.
Yeah, we have to have her back.
Any last words? Any last comments?
I'm thinking about what Deola said about this friend of hers, and she described him as enlightened.
He's today's boy. Hey,
He's deluded.
maybe he has the today's. Maybe he has the hardware of today's man, but the
and
software.
software of yesterday.
So it can't be enlightened.
That's so.
This
With the where
ridiculous.
the hardware is 2021.
It's carrying an iPad,
But
but the
our
operating system
software-
is.
is Nokia 2210.
That is where the hypocrisy comes in.
Hmm.
And that is why you have to have these conversations. Because we go into marriage with totally wrong expectations. And there is just no way that you can live peacefully when you're expecting something and you get something else. It just doesn't make sense. So you really have to have that conversation and come clean. Because believe you me, prevention is better than cure.
Absolutely.
Wow.
And as Mama was talking, the image that played on my head was, our men in Abuja who say they don't bow for women, they don't bow, they can't serve women. And Queen Elizabeth came to Nigeria and they lined up and they started
And they
bowing. Oh, God.
When reality hits you, then that's when you really know the stuff that you're made of.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
And thank you very much, Mommy, for coming. We hope to have you.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we hope to have you some other time.
So cool, man.
Yeah.
So
Thank
cool.
you.
Thanks, guys. Thank you for
Thank
joining.
you, guys. Adiola, thank you for joining
Yes,
us.
thank you for the nuggets that you dropped, Mom, about not that wall, that fear being easy to live by because you don't put yourself into it. And love, you need to put yourself into it. That was a really good nugget. Thank you for that.
Very deep. Thank you very much, man. Leslie, we're going to bring you someday, so get ready.
Yes, Leslie. Who calls who? Is it you that calls him?
We call him principal. That's his name. He's our principal. I correct
You're
him.
going to be in studio very soon, Leslie. Thanks, guys. Have a wonderful evening. See you again next week for another episode of Real Deep Combos.
Real Deep.
Bye.
Bye.